Now I'd like to introduce Perez, a class of 2010 Writers Retreat Fellow in Nonfiction.
Thank you. I'm going to read an essay that's going to be included in an anthology called Persistence, Still Butch and Femme. And the essay, it's an excerpt of the essay, is called Coming Back Around to Butch. My first real girl crush was a butch. Well, she didn't call herself that, and maybe never has, and she was in the closet, just like I was, but it was something about her short hair, expertly chosen jeans and t-shirts, the boyish lines and masculine sensibilities that drew me to her. When Dee and I met, I still believed there was an imaginary line down the middle of the clothing store that meant only the right side was for me. She was the fashion role model I'd never had, and even took me to buy my first baseball cap. I'd ignored minor crushes like these for years, my 13-year-old mind wandering to thoughts of kissing my drama teacher, and 17-year-old me secretly wanting to kiss my math tutor. But this was one I couldn't ignore, even though it was more than 2 years of friendship before my feelings for her finally forced me to come out. The line between wanting to date her and wanting to look like her felt tenuous. And looking back, I'm pretty sure any attempts at being sexual would have failed miserably. But my complicating feelings for Dee taught me this crucial lesson. I needed to figure out who I wanted to be before I could figure out who I wanted to be with. I was barely a dyke then, let alone butch, but it was the lure of female masculinity that drew me into and out in the queer world. It was a fierce femme who bossy bottomed me into the role of butch top. It was easy to be the butch to seize femme, and she delighted in my enjoyment of her high heels, her pretty dresses, and her made-up face. In those moments, when my insecurity was stronger than my sense of self, the contrast between my budding masculinity and her strong, well-articulated femininity were just what I needed to feel whole, strong, even butch. C didn't change me exactly, but our gender play heavy sex gave me room to figure out what my gender could look like in those private spaces we shared, shielded from how society saw me. There are people who believe you can't be a butch without a femme, that you need the two ends of the spectrum all the time to be in balance. For me, that was only half true. I did need the strength of my partner's femininity to bring me into my own identity. I did need the contrast with her to make me feel strong, to let me see myself. But now that I'm there, I haven't forgotten the tomboys I had crushes on in the early days. I still fantasize about fucking them, but now, not as a girl exactly. I needed my own sense of gender first, so that I could come back to them. When I was coming out in the 2000s, butch was no longer new. There were books, popular knowledge, and underground cultural understanding of what it meant to be butch. I may not have known it intimately as a late-blooming queer who grew up in an extremely straight southern town, but I knew enough to feel self-conscious claiming butchness. You see, I was never a tomboy. There, I said it. I was never a goddamn tomboy. I never resisted the dresses my mom had me wear, never hid in my dad's closet trying on his clothes. I did gender conformity without any real fight, and when I came out to my mom, she used this against me. But you were always so feminine. Maybe I didn't have the fight in me. Maybe I wanted to fit in more than I wanted to know myself. But until I was well past 20, I wore my hair long, earrings dangling in my ears, makeup on my face. I wore spaghetti-strapped tank tops, flowing skirts. I flaunted my cleavage. The narrative I had absorbed, the one I began to furtively read as I came out, wasn't mine. I wasn't a rough-and-tumble butch kid, all scabby knees and hardness, fighting mom against Sunday dresses. I wasn't good at sports, didn't have trouble being friends with girls, didn't feel more boy than girl. So when I slowly started easing toward the masculine side of the spectrum, I was self-conscious as hell. I felt like an imposter. I felt like a phony. I had similar feelings when I came out as lesbian, but my fantasies about women quickly assuaged my fears of being a queer fraud. With my gender presentation, I couldn't get over the feeling that I was trying too hard. But experiment I did, self-consciousness be damned, and a few years later, as I had slowly, and I mean slowly, shed the layers of femininity in my presentation, the self-consciousness still affected what labels I used. I knew what butch was, and I still felt it couldn't be me. I hadn't been a tomboy. I even wore a pink dress to prom. Tom. I had dated men. I was short and chubby and more giggly than tough. I feel lucky to have grown up in a world with butch pioneers, and I feel lucky that I had an idea of what being butch might have meant. But instead of making me feel part of the community, these constructions of what butch was, stereotypes really, pushed me away from the word and the identity. Instead, I chose a newer term, genderqueer. Genderqueer had yet to be defined, it was in flux, it was a new frontier. I may not have been butch enough, but genderqueer was all mine to claim and rewrite and redefine. Now it's been a few more years, and I've gotten more confident. I still really like genderqueer, still claim it and own it, and love the way it makes room for me in all my complexities. But I'm coming back around to butch. Maybe it's because the years of pink prom dresses are farther and farther behind me. Maybe it's because I'm learning from butch elders who talk in terms that make room for me, giggles and all. Maybe it's also because the people I know now, unless I tell them, have no idea I was never a tomboy. They only know me, my short hair, tightly bound chest, and button-down shirts. I think every new generation feels the need to reject their elders, reject what came before them, really feel that they are the new gender rebels. We invent terms, we create new spaces, and sometimes we come back to where our big brother started, home.